Moving into our second story of the day. Folks, if you haven't hit that like and subscribe button already, join us. We would love your help here and support at The Bald Brad Show. Well, there's a Republican host that recoils when Sonny Hostin blows off Lee Zeldin assassination attempt. This one is truly remarkable. And you have a massive claim that is made by Whoopi Goldberg, which we are going to debunk here on The Bald Brad Show. And I feel like we don't do that enough, where we do a lot of reaction, kind of shooting from the hip commentary. And very rarely do I sit down and go, okay, let's look at one of the left's arguments here. Let's see what they're saying. And then let's debunk what they're saying and actually prove them wrong. That's what we're going to do today. So you have this clip here from Whoopi Goldberg, and then we'll get into what Sonny Hostin says of talking about Republican-led states and how the murder crimes have gone up and how we're so focused as Republicans and conservatives on the crime in Democrat-ran areas. But what about the murder rates? Let's go ahead and roll it.
One of the things people tend to forget, particularly sometimes when the Republicans like this gentleman are running, they tend to forget. Conservative media reports on crime, they focus on the urban areas, but as it turns out, murder rates have been higher this year in Republican-led states. And Third Way found that 8 of the 10 states with the highest per capita murder rates in 2020 voted Republican in every presidential election. Now, crime is rough everywhere. It's happening everywhere. And what I wanted from Lee Zeldin, I wanted a plan. Because I know what Kathy Hochul's been trying to do. I know how she's working. Sometimes, sometimes she can get it together and sometimes it doesn't go the way I want it to. But I wanted to hear him say something other than, you're not, you. What is your plan, Lee Zeldin? Because we know people are getting stabbed. We know what's happening. We know what's going on. What do you plan to do? Because as I'm saying, she at least has a plan.
Well, we certainly didn't hear a plan, I don't think.
Well, I'd be happy to tell you the Republican
what's interesting
plan.
to me
No, his plan. Just his.
So she's about to bring up the Republicans' plan, but now she wants to hear his plan, and his plan could very well be attributed to the Republicans' plan. But she doesn't want to get into that, and like I said, we're going to debunk this right now because the way that she phrased this is very misleading. And the thing is with the View listeners, they're not going to sit there and actually look into the study like we did on the Bald Brad Show and actually look at the numbers here and what she's saying. Because there is truth into what she said, but if you dive deeper, that truth isn't what it makes it out to be in terms of the Republican states here, or the red states. So with Republicans hammering them over rising murder rates, Democrats have come up with a new line of defense. Republicans, they claim, are the ones really responsible for the surge in homicides. The United States, California Governor Gavin Newsom, my governor unfortunately, recently declared has a red state murder problem. Well, it doesn't, folks. The bogus claim comes from a March study by Democratic think tank Third Way, which you heard Whoopi Goldberg talk about, which purports to show that contrary to the right-wing obsession, which we've covered here on the Bald Brad Show, over homicides in Democratic cities, murder rates are far higher in Trump-voting red states than Biden-voting blue states. There is truth to that in terms of the red state, but when you zoom in on it, folks, we're about to debunk it. According to Third Way, of the top 10 states with the highest per capita murder rates in 2020, 8 of those states voted for Donald Trump, while just 2, New Mexico and Georgia, voted for Joe Biden. Republicans seem to do a much better job of talking about stopping crime than stopping the actual crime. That comes from Jim Kessler, an author of the report, told Axios. One problem that in most red states have, the higher murder rates are driven by the lethal violence in their blue cities. So you can have the state be red, but if you zoom in, it's the Democratic-ran cities and localities that are causing these massive murder rates. So she's lying to you. She's making it seem like, oh, well, it's the Republicans that are causing all this. But when you zoom in, it's you numbskulls, Democrats, and progressive left that are driving up the murder rates. So no matter which way you look at it, conservatives and the Republicans are still right. Just as we've been talking about on the Bald Brad Show. It's your cities. Those cities can be embedded within a red state. It doesn't mean it's our fault. Run the localities like you're supposed to do. Run your cities like you're supposed to do, not drive them in the ground like you see from Los Angeles, Chicago with Mayor Lightfoot, or Mayor Eric Adams of New York City. Hell, the list goes on and on. But this is what they do. They manipulate data, folks. This is exactly what they do. Take Missouri. Yes, it voted for Trump, but it also is home to 2 of the most dangerous cities, St. Louis and Kansas City, both of which are run by what? Oh, it's Democrats, ran by Democrats. Earlier this year, CBS News did an analysis of the deadliest U.S. cities. Using the latest FBI and crime data, in 2019, it found St. Louis had the highest murder rate in the nation, with 64.54 murders per 100,000 residents. Kansas City, meanwhile, had the 8th highest murder rate, with basically 30 murders per 100,000. According to the FBI, the state had about 520 murders in major metropolitan areas that year, 20 in cities outside metropolitan areas, and 28 in non-metropolitan counties. So the vast majority of Missouri's homicides took place in Democrat-run cities. Unbelievable. This same holds true for Louisiana, Tennessee, specifically in Democrat-ran areas like Memphis, Alabama. I mean, you go down the list here, you guys. It literally just shellacks in this study that's done in correlation with the FBI that it's Democrat-ran cities that are driving everything into the ground. Murder rates are up, armed robberies are up, and the whole shebang. And who are they going to blame? Us. Go figure. Go figure how they get to that one. They're going to blame us over all this. It's just, you can't make it up. You cannot make it up, folks. And it doesn't stop there. You got Sunny Hostin here just making just a crazy asinine comment about an assassination attempt on Lee Zeldin. And we'll talk about it. Let's just go ahead and roll it.
And I don't think.
Well, I'd be happy to tell you the
Well, what's
Republican
interesting
plan.
to me
No,
is
his plan. Just
his
him.
plan. He voted against the ban on semi-automatic weapons.
Of course he did.
And homicides are up. And I think most people, having been a prosecutor, I know this, they care about violent crimes. They don't care about broken window crime.
It's amazing how she's going to talk about semi-automatic weapons and removing them, which is what The View wants. They want to get rid of handguns and the AR-15 style rifles and all this other stuff. But yet you have these murder rates that are increasing in Democrat-ran areas. They're going to blame it on the red states. Go figure. And at the same time, they don't want people to be able to protect themselves, but yet they're also going to say that that's what Americans are worried about is violent crime. How the hell are you supposed to protect yourself, lady, if you remove our weapons? If you take them away, which is what you want to do?
They really don't care about that as much. They care about violent crimes.
In the last few months, Lee Zeldin was nearly stabbed on stage while campaigning in New York. A bullet came within 30.
True.
Yeah.
That's not okay, though. That's
No, I'm not saying it's
horrifying.
okay.
That means
He is-
crime and
he is
political violence is on that.
Right.
And then there was a shooting outside his house that came within 30 feet of his home while his daughters were in the house. He is very familiar with the crime that is going on.
He's familiar with
and
what just happened to him, because that's New York's. That's New York
the New York
City
City.
right
but
now.
one thing that's
That's what we have to.
But one
that's
thing
what we're
safest city
crime
that's
is
the
a
thing.
and I don't think.
Well,
and
I'd be
New York remains one of the safest. Come on. Does anybody actually believe that? Just go to New York and actually see it. By the way, New York is a Democratic ran once again. And you don't have to be there that long to see the crime that's going on in New York. You just had Whoopi Goldberg call out the crime that's going on in New York. You got Sunny Hostin discrediting the fact of the crime that's going on in New York. But this is the thing, folks. It's all smoke. It's all craziness. And this is what they do on The View. They lie to all of you. They lie consistently to all of you. We're going to end this segment off by saying, and in May, a report his Manhattan Institute colleagues, Robert Verbergen and Christos Morkidis, examined the growth in the homicide rate per capita in the largest U.S. counties from 2019 and 2020, and then compared the rates in GOP-leaning and Democratic-ran-leaning counties. They found that the counties with higher shares of GOP voters have a much lower homicide death rate and a lower number of deaths in 2020, and also a lower growth in homicide rates. So you got to love that they're going to use a Democratic think tank called Third Way to try and support the information that they're espousing in these narratives to their viewers, of which when you zoom in onto it, it turns out it's not what it's made out to be. Go figure. The View swindling their own audience. I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Bald Brad Show. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all our future content.